You see a business for sale for 3x cash flow. You think, hey, that's a great deal. The purchase price is 3x cash flow. I should buy it. Well, if you're only considering the cash to put down to buy a business like that and not considering the other financial implications of buying a business, well, you're missing the mark. But outside of those financial implications, there are other intangible costs that you have to think about in terms relationally, operationally, the change of your lifestyle and the things that you're about to do to become the CEO of a business that you just bought. Those are things you really need to think about when you're buying a business. So in today's video, I'm going to break all that down for you. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I am your host, Leo Landaverde, business broker and commercial lender helping you buy and scale a profitable business. If you are a business owner looking to increase your wealth by buying another business, or a W-2 employee finally sick and tired of the rat race and want to buy a profitable business, you are in the right place. Please subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to hit the bell and you'll be notified every Thursday when new content comes out. All right, let's get started. So there's going to be 3 parts. Part 1, the hidden financial costs. Now, this is not often talked about, and this is going to be real talk. If you're actually be looking to buy a business, and this is not hype anymore, this is real transactions with real people that have closed-on businesses. So as far as the hidden financial costs that are not often talked about, number 1 is going to be your CAPEX, your capital expenditures. Capital expenditures is something that happens whenever you have to. It's a balance sheet item, so it's not often showing up in the P&L. Those are charges, or whether it's going to be investments in equipment and machinery and assets that you're going to need to be able to run the business, depending on the type of business that you look at, right? If the business has cost of goods sold and it has machinery, depending on the industry, if there's light manufacturing, where's manufacturing, if you need furniture, fixtures, and equipment, there is a hidden cost. It's very obvious when you're looking at a business like a restaurant, right? And all you have to do is walk to the back door to see to the back room and see the kitchen, and all the equipment. Well, all that equipment needs to be maintained, and sometimes need to be replaced, and new equipment needs to be added. And people often forget that that's one of the buckets of cash that you have to kind of think through. And the lenders, when you're evaluating a deal for you, they're going to be thinking through that. They're going to be talking to you about that. So you cannot neglect. There is always a way to calculate the capital expenditures over a period of time. Number 2 is going to be the part 1 is going to be working capital. Now, working capital is becoming a bigger and bigger deal. This is particularly true if you're actually buying the stock of a business. If you're doing a stock purchase, it's going to have to be negotiated, and there is a lot of debate, and it's probably one of the most difficult things to calculate as an M&A advisor that I am, business broker. And the larger the transaction, the more complex the working capital calculations. At the outset, you got current assets minus current liabilities is going to yield a dollar amount. And what that is the dollar amount. That's technically the definition of working capital, the delta between those two. But then how does it translate into the P&L? And what is the run rate? What is the behavior of the operating expenses across multiple cycles, whether it's months, quarters, or years? How is it behaving? How much working capital are you going to need? Because if you are doing a stock purchase, you're going to get X amount of working capital, and any excess working capital goes back to the seller. And I have negotiated on either side on transactions. When I've been the seller representing the sell side, and when I represented the buyers, working capital on a stock purchase is all of those intricacies of how to calculate excess. You have to be figured out, hammered out, and assigned by both parties. Now, if you're buying the assets of a business and you're dealing with working capital, well, we need to know what working capital is. So we need to put a number on it. Now, we kind of guesstimate what without doing the diligence during the letter of intent stage, where we're about to make an offer and structuring deals, we can guesstimate how much that working capital is going to be. But we're really going to have to find out during due diligence. Is it 50, 100, 150, 200, $250,000? And who's going to pay for it? Now, is the seller, do we work it out in such a way that we've done in some of our deals that we actually work out the working capital? So the seller has to pay for it, or are you going to have to put up with it? Or are you going to dealing with, the lender? Is the lender going to give you the working capital? So from a lender's perspective, they give you working capital. There's actually more money that they're putting out to use, which means you're going to have to pay interest. So that is sort of the default. In most situations, it is the lender who's going to pony up the working capital. And that's something but you have to think that through. Also, employee retention costs. Some employees will leave when ownership changes, and that's something that we really try to get in front of so that doesn't happen. Um, employees who stay, how we're going to get into not demand raises or putting in a situation that is going to be disadvantaged. Remember, what we're actually buying among the assets are your employees. Your employees are actually human assets, but if not treated properly, they can turn into liabilities. So we want to get in front of that. What are, if you're getting into the trades, as some of you are that watch my videos or members of my community already, that are paid members, we talked about this all the time. When you are in the trades, now home services, the roofing, the HVAC, the paving, the contractors, all of them, electrical people, electrical contractor, the plumbing. Now you're gonna need licensed people, people that are tradesmen. Now, how competitive is the industry? Have you done your research? How hard is it to retain him? Are you gonna groom him from within? Are you gonna pay for their apprenticeship program, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So something that for you to think about, right? If you're looking at a business, if you're looking at the tenure of you're looking at as you're evaluating a business, you're looking at the tenure of the employees inside due diligence. You want to know how long they've been sticking around. How long have they been employees of the business that is selling? The longer they're stuck around, the higher the chances they're going to stick around with you. The more reason that they are, the less loyalty they have to the seller, the more likely they are to leave eventually. So that's something that you have to consider. There are number 4, supplier and lease agreements. Now, if those vendor agreements are not in place with some type of a fixed agreement and any transfers ownership, some of those agreements can change. There'll be a transition. There could be an increase in cost. Are you stuck in trying to figure out how to buy a business? You don't know how much money you need down or working capital. When do you get the deal approved? Is the cash flow from the business that qualifies, or is it your cash flow like when you're buying a home? Do you have to have enough management experience? What about licensing? What about across state lines? How far do you need to be, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If you have questions, we got answers. We want to connect with you so we can actually help you. Please click on the link below or drop me a comment or send me an email if you want to book a complimentary call with a member of my team. And even if you don't really work with us, you'll walk away with an actionable plan so you can actually buy a business this year. We tried as best as we can to really mitigate that ahead of time before the transition. So that's just some 4 aspects of the hidden cost of the transaction that we inside of our group, Business Acquisition Mastery, really hammered out to the benefit of the buyer. So part 2 is the hidden operational costs. Depending on the nature of the cash flow, how much cash flow, the distance, your role, whether your employee, going to be acting as the GM, whether you're going to be part-time, full-time, whatever the case may be, there's going to be a time commitment, and it's a lot more than you think. If you think you're going to buy a business, you're going to only want to work 10 hours a week, double that. 20 hours a week. If you think you're going to buy a business, you're going to, for at least for your first few months, that you're going to work 40 hours, well, you're probably going to need to work a little more. And have you considered that is? A lot of what happens when you're a W-2 employee is that you are into an infrastructure, a situation in which you only do so much, and then you go home, right? However, the higher you up in the ladder and you have more managerial and VP level, then you don't necessarily go home at 5 o'clock. You keep working. So some of that mentality is going to have to trickle into being a CEO, because when you're the owner of the business, the buck starts with you. You're ultimately in charge. And a lot of people have a sort of a surprise when they actually buy a business, and if they didn't do it right, that, oh my gosh, do I have to really work that much? Initially, you will until you set up the systems and procedures. And the more you know about an industry, the less time you're going to have to put in. But if you're transitioning from one entirely unrelated industry to an industry that you don't know anything about, don't you think that it behooves you to actually learn how the industry works? And the more you want to learn, you want to put in the time so you can learn it, so you can eventually step back. 6, the learning curve is steeper than expected. Now, if you're, and this is particularly true if you're going into an industry you don't know very much about, and you manage that you leverage your circumstantial management experience on whatever you do into buying this business, there's going to be a learning curve. And however we structure the deal in which the seller gets to stick around for X amount of weeks and months to help you, it's going to be longer than you think it's going to be. Everything is a little harder than you think it's going to be, because unless you actually bought several businesses, you don't really know what you don't know yet. Our job inside of our group is to help you, and we want to help you do it right. There's so many things, hundreds of things that can go wrong in a transaction. And if you don't set it up properly, it's gonna hurt you, right? And we structure it in such a way that all the legal agreements give us a way out and a way to protect our buyer. Now, if you bought a business that was heavily owner dependent, so that's point number 7, heavily owner dependent, then if we didn't do our job right, well, the seller walks away, then you are the owner that is you just step in, you just buy yourself a job. How many people do you think do that? Many people actually buy a business, and that happens a lot in the less than $300,000 worth of SDE or cash flow per year. There's no standard procedures. There's no second layer of management. The more involved that you are, the lesser the layers of management, then the more owner dependent it becomes. I personally don't like owner dependent businesses. I want businesses that have a lot more cash flow, a lot more employees that can step in and basically spread the knowledge base. Part 3, the hidden emotional and lifestyle costs. Now, unless you have owned and operated a business, and I have owned and operated businesses for the last 20 years, there is a delicate balance in the work-life balance. Work-life balance. And if you're single, that's one thing. But if you're married, have you counted the cost with your spouse? Is she going to be coming along for the journey? Because the work-life balance at first is going to be a little bumpy where you're trying to figure things out, but you will, and we will help you with that. But you need to know going in that this is going to be different than what you're used to. And it's okay. It's not necessarily bad. You just need to know it going in. And yes, you're buying a business, you're going to have a loan, you're going to have a pressure to perform. Now, if you didn't set up your 2-year projections, and if you didn't do a good job right, then you may be in trouble, right? Now, I often tell our students, look, when you're doing the projections, don't do it like the kid that is taking a college class and you study enough just to pass the test. No. You build those projections like your life depends on you, and you really put the time and effort. And I work with every one of our students who has a deal under contract, really helping you fine tune and hammer out the best 2-year window that you're going to have to really scale your business to where it needs to be in a realistic way. Because guess what? The lender is going to demand that you know what you're talking about in those projections. And you're going to have to defend those projections yourself. But that's part of the process of teaching you how to do it right. So you don't have the pressure. You have realistic expectations on how to do it. Here's another thing that is going to happen. You remember you are basically the aggregate of the 5 people you hang out with. Guess what happens when you go from being a W-2 employee to being the CEO of your own business? Your friends, your W-2 friends, are not necessarily going to understand what's going on because you're now all of a sudden a business owner. Now, I've been a business owner for a long time, and there was a transitional period, which a lot of my W-2 friends didn't like. Like, wait a minute, why you bought a business and why is that? It doesn't make sense. You won't be able to relate to anymore, so you're going to have to upgrade or figure out how to actually work with friends that are going to help you where you need to be. Now that you have to walk away from your existing friends, but your relationships will change. And that is a hidden cost of buying a business. Now, the question is, should you still buy a business? And the answer is absolutely yes. I wouldn't be here doing this video if I didn't believe it 100%. And I got 400 videos in this channel to prove it. I am completely obsessed with helping you buy a business because that's when my life changed. 20 years ago, actually 21 years ago in 2004, when I got into my first business, bought my first business, that's when my life changed. And I haven't looked back. So if you want to learn how to buy a profitable business, we would love to help you. Thank you so much for watching this video. For a limited time, we're giving away our Deal Analyzer 2.0, which is the tool you're going to need if you want to look at deals that are in market or off market and knowing what to offer, what the SDE is, what is the multiple, where do you get the multiple, etc., etc., etc. Also, we're giving away our Business Buyers Checklist, which is a 6-page document that has basically a punch list at every stage of the business acquisition process that you can definitely need to have if you're going to do this right. So those are both my gifts to you. Click on the links below to get them.